Welcome back, you guys. Thank you very much for joining me. My name is Swadik Mayanja. You can call me Q, and I am Q the nurse. And thank you for joining me for another week of the nursing news. It's been a couple of weeks. Yes, it has, but I am back, and we have quite the stories. Starting out with a few negative stories, talking about the separation at the medical, the nursing, the medical view on what the separation, on what Trump is doing to these children, what that can do, and probably is already doing to many of these children. Transgenderism is not considered a disease, a mental disorder anymore, and a new mental disorder, gaming addiction is now added to the ICD. A whole lot of stories, that and much more coming your way. Thank you for joining. Let's jump right on in.
You'll be doing things you don't like doing in order to go on living, that is, to go on doing things you don't like doing, which is stupid. Better to have a short life that is full of what you like doing than a long life spent in a miserable way.
Hey. And so we're going to talk about, starting out with this, the separation of the children that Trump's doing at the border with Border Patrol, with the ICE agents, how he's separating these parents from these children. I don't know how in the world he thought that this might be a good idea, but I'm happy. I am happy to know that the country as a whole, as the vast majority of people in the country were disgusted, were devastated with this policy. People have been fighting back. People have been screaming. People have been marching, and there's going to be a huge march coming up next week here in Boston, and I'm pretty sure there's been many throughout the goddamn country. People have been fighting back in a huge way, and it makes me proud to be a member of this country. It just makes me a little happier. Sad that it's actually happening. Horrific that it's actually happening. But people were outraged. People have been yelling, screaming. I mean, just getting into Trump's ear. Just all of the media has been backing these children up. This disgusting policy. He signed an executive order that turned that around. He's still going to have detention centers for these families, but he's going to keep them together. Is that the right thing to do? That is a policy question we can talk about later. I obviously disagree with it. I believed in the hearts of my hearts, if someone is willing to risk their family's life, risk their child's livelihood by coming to a country illegally, and most of the time, especially in this situation, people are coming here for asylum. If that's the situation, I believe they're running for something worse. But that's not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today is the effects of the already separated children from these parents, what that can do to them mentally moving forward. It's a scary situation. Reading this story, reading these articles, reading these studies really made my gut wrench. Forget about what's already happened. But let's see what we're moving forward. So, when these children are forcibly, abruptly separated from a parent or trusted caregiver, stress hormones in these children, like adrenaline, cortisol, flood their systems. Over time, those hormones can start killing off neurons, causing both short and long-term consequences that may cause learning and behavioral problems and or physical and mental health issues. Children's stress response system, if persistently triggered over more than a brief encounter, can affect the immune system, can affect the cardiovascular system, can affect the metabolic system, and even alter physical structure of the brain. The longer the separation, the worse the impact of the stresses are likely to be. Every single day, every single time a stressor, a major stressor is happening in these children's life and their parents are not around to protect them, to keep them safe so they feel comforted, these effects are happening to their bodies. These hormones are getting flooded into their system. These are physical things. These are actual actions. The separation from parent to child is a horrific thing. And you're going to see in this, when I continue reading on how scary these effects can be long-term for these children. According to the attachment theory developed in 1958 by John Bowlby, Bowlby, and Mary Ainsworth, young children's sense of security is rooted in their relationship with their caregivers. That in turn shapes their social, cognitive, and emotional regulation skills. Separating a child from a caregiver puts a child's long-term development at risk. All right, so that's the theory. Let's go down to the nitty-gritty, the actual studies that were done, and see how it actually affects these children. Since 2000, Nelson and his team have studied thousands of Romanian orphans to understand the neurological impact of separating children from their parents. They found that children separated from their parents in the first 2 years of life scored lower on IQ tests. Later in life, their self-regulation was worse, and their stress reaction system seemed broken. The things that would cause a typically developing child to stress out would not have the same effect on them. MRI scans showed that by age 8, these children had less gray and white matter in their brains than children raised by their own families. Understand this. So the first 2 years of life, only in the first 2 years of life, if they're separated, right? And we all know the tender age concentration camps, Walmart centers, containment centers, whatever they want to call it, these tender aged detention centers were for infants. And they said specifically, if the separation happens within these first 2 years of this child's life, which is the Trump administration's tender age description, if it's happened that at that point of time, by the time they're 8, only by the time they're 8, they can see the drastic changes, which I think is insane, right? So children who experience profound neglect early in life, if you don't reverse that by the age of 2, the chance that they will end up with a poor development outcomes is high. Okay, this is from that same study. Continuing on, they said the unexpected forcible separation from your parents is worse. This is what really took me back. So the unexpected forcible separation from your parents is worse than the ravages of being in a war zone or being a victim of oppression or living in deep poverty. In all of those, the only buffer you have as a parent, take that away and everything falls apart. And it's true. It is so very true. You hear these, stories from rags to riches stories where people were like, I didn't even know I was poor because, it was just me and my parents and that was my normal, right? I didn't even know I was in a war-torn city when I was growing up because my parents took care of me. They were there for me. I didn't even know that I was in whatever situation because my parents loved me and showed me care and affection and all of this stuff is great. If you don't have any caregivers, if you don't have any of your parents with you, if you're separated and you don't have that connection, and you are in insane poverty, and you are in a war-torn zone, if you are an immigrant to this country that gets separated and gets put into internment camps, basically is what's happening, you're going to feel the entire brunt force of this. And we're not talking the entire brunt force of this on adults that can control their emotions. We're talking on infants, on children. It's a scary thing. It's a horrible, horrible thing. So to end this off, the separation is hurtful enough to children's development, but the conditions of custody themselves can also add to the toxic stress experienced by these kids, and there's reason to believe that the U.S. government is not always the most trustworthy custodian. And this is just clear as day if you just look at all the news that's being reported. To this day, June 21st, we have yet to see any of the holding centers for any of the female children, and where they're holding these tender-aged children. So we haven't seen any of the girls, and we haven't seen any of the tender-aged children. Why? If they were happy, if they were playing on playgrounds, do you think for 1 second that they would say, no, we don't want anyone to see this? Of course not. The reason they don't want us to see it is because the conditions are obviously horrible. Obviously horrible. How horrible? We don't know, but it's horrible enough that they don't want us to see it. All right? We've just talked about all the signs, all of what can happen to developmentally to these children once they grow up, to the stresses, to the hormones and all of this stuff. Yeah, we know. I just told you, we have the facts out there. It's dangerous. It's horrible. But can we just look at each other? Can we just be human beings for 10 seconds and ask ourselves the simple question, is this the best way Is this the most humane way we can deter this from happening? Separating children, infants, tender-aged children from their parents. It is horrible. It is heart-wrenching. It is the worst thing I have heard. We talk about race and how outwardly horrific it is here in the States. We talk about all of these horrific things that happen day in and day out in America. But this, by far, in a way, is the worst as a whole, as a country, as a government policy, I have seen in my time in America. It is horrendous. It is tragic. It is the worst thing ever. I'm happy that they decided to keep the families together. I don't think that putting them in these prisons and detaining them is the best way to go about it. It's one step forward. We're going to have to keep fighting because, God damn it, it's a scary situation. And to end this off, yes, he decided that we're going to stop and we're going to, from here on out, we are going to detain the families together. But the question still stands, where are the children that were separated? How quickly can we get these children and families? Because remember, there's over 2,400 children that have been separated from their parents. How are we going to get all of them back together? Currently, they've been shipping these children off in planes, and you've heard stories from stewardess, from flight attendants that's being like, I can't understand how it's possible that we have all these children with standing next to ICE members with full armor gear and guns and the whole goddamn nine. How we can have those children in planes? But that's the situation we're living in. It's a scary, horrific situation. I don't know. We have to figure out something, because I was talking to an old friend, and the honest truth is, right now, free Americans, you who are watching this right now, we are the voice for these children, for these parents, for these immigrants that are separated. We are their voice. They can't argue. They can't fight. They can't get policy changes. They can't do anything. They can't even see their own family. We need to come together in some way, shape, or form and fight this tooth and nail until we can get some civility and justice. Okay. All right. So I am sorry that we had to start the news that way, but we have to talk about these things, because if we don't, what is going to happen, right? How is change going to happen if we don't know and everything's not on the table? So this story is special to me. This story is American history. Not too much to do with nursing news, but it is American history, and it is shameful. I was ashamed myself that I didn't know that this was a thing. I didn't know that this was an actual holiday. And if you don't know what I'm talking about Juneteenth. I saw a couple of posts about Juneteenth. Happy Juneteenth. June 19th. It happens every single year. It was the first year I've noticed it, but I saw a couple of posts this week. Happy Juneteenth. Happy Juneteenth. I'm like, what in the goddamn world is Juneteenth? I've never heard it in school. I've never had a friend celebrate it. I've had zero, nada, no knowledge of this day ever. June 19th was June 19th to me. I don't even know anyone's birthday on June 19th. But it's a holiday, and a very important one at that. Do you want to know what Juneteenth is? Let me let you know. So on June 19th, 1865, Major General Gordon Granger came to Galveston, Texas to inform a reluctant community that President Abraham Lincoln 2.5 years ago, yes, 2.5 years ago, had freed the slaves and the pressed locals to comply with the directive. So this is 2.5 years after, not during, after, 2.5 years after the slaves were emancipated, that this general went down to Texas and saying, this needs to stop. You guys need to come join, get with the program. Slavery is over. It is crazy. It is insane. I know they didn't have Facebook. I know you couldn't have just emailed them the situation, but there is no way in God's world it took 2 years to get the message across. It was obviously done purposefully, and that's the next question. Why did it take so long for Texas to join the rest of the United States and ending slavery? Let's find out. So there is no one reason why there was a 2.5-year delay in letting Texas know about the abolition of slavery in the United States, according to Juneteenth.com. The historical site said some accounts placed the delay on a messenger who was murdered on his way to Texas. Only one messenger? Really? We're supposed to believe there was just one messenger in all of America that was sent to go tell Texas, the entire state of Texas. No one ever left Texas and came back, traveled out of the state and came back. Everyone in Texas was there for 2.5 years, never left and came back. No one had any ideas, no newspapers, no nothing. No one knew. It was a secluded country that's on its own. Get the hell out of here. Way to Texas is the news, while others say that the news was deliberately withheld, and that is obviously the truth. I mean, that is the truth, because there is just no way that it was one man's job to let an entire state of human beings that is part of a country know that a law is a law is a law. That's bullshit. I don't care if it was in 1865. All right, that's just not how life works. Where does the name Juneteenth come from? Juneteenth, which is also known as a Freedom Day or Emancipation Day, is a combination of June and 19th in honor of the day that Granger announced the abolition of slavery in Texas. And the question is, how do you celebrate Juneteenth? What do you do to celebrate Juneteenth? I didn't know. I don't know. So what did I do? I did what any human being would do when they don't know a question. You Google it, you YouTube it. And I'm just going to show you a compilation of Juneteenth celebration. And next year, hopefully next year, when June 19th comes around, remember, I'm horrible with dates. I don't know anyone's birthday. If you know me personally, you know that that's the truth of who I am. I forget when. You ask me any holiday, I don't know, outside of the big guns, obviously, right? But hopefully next year, we can all celebrate together. And don't you think for 1 second, if I remember, I'm going to remind y'all, okay? So enjoy some of the Juneteenth compilation celebrations. I love it. Fun. I think next year maybe a barbecue, maybe some dancing, maybe go out and watch a historically black play. Something exciting we'll do next year. That is indeed the goal. I hope you enjoy that. Moving on to a little bit sad news. A little bit. This is some horrific news. This is horrible news, okay? So a New Jersey school is sued over a bullied girl's suicide. A young girl committed suicide, and now the parents are suing the school that she went to. I think this story is a little more difficult than people might think. Once you find out the age of this little girl, you're going to be like, holy shit. The school should have done some more, but it's really hard. Mental illness is a really difficult thing. To find the difference between someone who's just saying things, who's just upset, who is just bullied, and say, oh my goodness, this is the girl that's going to commit suicide. It's a very, very, very difficult task, right? So that's why mental health, we need some more awareness on the issue. But this is a super sad story. Let me give you the details and then we'll talk some more. So the parents of a 12-year-old girl who took her own life and are suing the school district in the U.S. state of New Jersey, saying it failed to prevent bullying. So that's a hard thing to sell at a school. It is. I think it's impossible to prevent bullying. I think that's just, unless you seclude every child, which makes it, what's the point then? I think it's impossible to prevent bullying, but once you hear the details, there's like some things that the school could have done differently, and hopefully maybe it could have been a different outcome. But this, let's continue. So Diane and Seth Grossman say that the school ignored repeated complaints that their daughter was being targeted. The legal action says that Mallory was sent text and Snapchat messages calling her a loser, making fun of her looks, and promoting her to end her own life. Oh, goodness. This is a 12-year-old girl. See, and this is the scary thing about social, man. You want your kids to be up on the social. You want your kids to be, in the in crowd and communicate and have fun with all the kids around them. But then Snapchat, Facebook messengers, Instagram, the whole Musically, the whole nine, getting attacked nonstop all day, every day. Please, God, it's a scary thing. After Mallory's death on On June 14, 2017, the lawsuit accuses Copeland Middle School of failing to take significant action to prevent bullying. It alleges that the school's response was to force Mallory to hug one of her alleged bullies in lieu of the disciplinary action, and accuses the school district of discouraging her parents from making a formal complaint. Administrators also suggested she avoid her harassers by eating in an office instead of the lunchroom. The lawsuit alleges the school district issued a statement in August of last year saying the allegations that the Rockaway Township School District ignored the Grossman's family and failed to address bullying in general is categorically false. So at this point, it is he said versus she said. This is he said, she said situation. The parents are saying, and this is a scary thing, if the school actually did that, go ahead with the lawsuit. Get them. Because that is some scary stuff. So number one, forcing the children to hug each other. What in the goddamn world is that? What in the goddamn world is that? All right, so I get it. I get it. As an adult, when you look at two kids fighting, but these are not kids like 5, 8, 6-year-olds. These are 12-year-olds. These are preteens. They have their own thoughts. They're human beings at this point, right? They're not just kids that you can tell to make up and high five and hug it out and move on, right? You can tell them to do these things, but they have to actually want to do these things, right? You don't tell people to hug it out. I think that's insane. You don't tell anyone to stop. That's craziness. And then instead of eating in the lunchroom, go eat in an office? Yeah, because someone who's getting bullied is going to get less bullied if they eat lunch every day in the goddamn office versus the lunchroom. I think this is crazy. When I was in high school, graduated in 2012 from Newton North, we had many from my time in middle school, growing up in high school. It was huge with this bullying, anti-bullying things, say no, all of these things. We had all of these seminars. And a huge part about it was bringing in the person, right? Bringing someone in, making him joining friends, standing up, not being just someone who's sitting by, not saying anything. You always want to join them. You always want to bring them in. You want to give them a hug. You want them to make new friends. The whole goddamn nine. So for me to hear that a school's policy is instead of eating lunch with your friends, instead of eating lunch with the classmates, you want to eat lunch by yourself in an office, I think that is insane and absurd. If the school actually did that, I hope that they get the whole book thrown at them. And that last claim that they said, to discourage the parents from making a formal complaint, that I can believe. I could believe that any day. A school instead of your formal complaint, go ahead, do it if you want, but we would suggest that we have a parent-teacher conference. Come on in and let's talk it out before you start making a complaint to the superintendent or whatever. I believe that, but that's nothing that turns me off. But the two huge signs here. Telling your kids to hug it out, I think, is insane, okay? That's just bullshit. Let the parents decide who your kid's going to hug and not going to hug. Don't tell any kid to hug any other kid if they don't want to, number one. Number two, if you're telling your kid who is getting bullied, instead of joining the rest of the people who are not bullying them, instead of eating lunch with a different crowd, or instead of eating lunch with the people and, talking it out and having a conversation, you tell them to go sit in an office in lunch versus going into the lunchroom, is absurd. It's crazy. And then the formal complaint is a formal complaint. I don't care if they did it, if they told them not to. That I don't think is worth a lawsuit. Everything else is. It's a sad situation that a 12-year-old girl has killed herself because of this bullying situation. Obviously, you're watching this video. I am all about the social. I am all about it. I think social media is one of the ways that when you are feeling alone, you know that someone on the other side of the earth that you would have never been able to talk to, you can have a legitimate relationship with these people. But to sift through all the bullshit, to sift through all the vitriol that's on the internet, that's coming from people that go to school with you, is a very difficult thing. And for a 12-year-old, my God, I don't know what the answer is. I have no idea what the answer is. Never let your kid use Snapchat. Never let your kid use the internet. Let your kid use it all, but watch every single thing that they do. I don't know what the answer is. But what I do know is it's a scary world. It's a scary world. And when, as a parent, when you send your kid to a school, you're putting a whole lot of trust in that school. And if that kid comes back home in pain, suffering, and you tell the school, you complain, you do everything you can to make sure that your kid is not going through this, and they give you this bull, hug it out, eat lunch in the office, stop complaining. If that is legit, thank you for suing. Thank you for making this public, because that is bullshit. I mean, it just is. It just is. So yes, so I hinted at this in the beginning, in the intro, gaming. I actually made a Twitch channel, and I think I'm going to do all of my Netflix videos on Twitch, which I am super excited about, because I need to figure out how to split up all of my social. But gaming. It's an exciting thing. I think it's blowing up. Esports is going to take over the world, but also it might take over our minds, because the World Health Organization has recognized the gaming disorder as a diagnosable condition. The organization's decision to include the new term in the 11th edition of its International Classification of Disease, the ICD, which it released Monday, has sparked controversy among psychiatric experts who question whether there's enough research to call it a true disorder. That is a really good question. Let's find out what the research says. So according to the American Psychological Association, an estimated 160 million American adults play video games, but the percentage of people that could qualify the disorder is extremely small. Players' ages range from under 18 to over 50. I mean, what does that even mean? Under 18, that could be like 2 years old, to over 50, that could be 110. What does that even mean? And the male to female ratio is almost equal. That actually surprises me. Video games in my head is always like a very male thing. I don't know if they consider like Candy Crush and stuff and all of those games, because I feel like just personal experience, I'm not generalizing, but my general experience has been that females are very, very addicted to the app games, to the those kind of games. And then like the actual video games, the Xbox, the PlayStation 4, the Fortnites, that is mainly men. Boys and men. The World Health Organization official definition of the gaming disorder includes, and here the definition of the disorder: a pattern of behavior for at least 12 months in which gaming is out of control. The pattern of behavior must show an increased priority given to gaming to the point that gaming takes precedent over other interests and daily activities. A continuation or escalation of gaming despite the occurrence of negative consequences or behavior that affects one's relationships, education, or occupation. This could mean that a teenager may play video games instead of doing homework and end up failing a test. Well, if that last sentence is the deciding factor of if something is a disorder or not, then every human being that's ever played a game and missed a homework assignment is considered, addicted. But I mean, that's what we generally, as nurses, we all know, that's what we generally use as a determining factor. Is it affecting your daily task? Is it affecting your daily living? If it is, it's a disorder. It's a problem. We need to fix it. Let's have a conversation. If it's not, do you boo, right? Do you boo? But that is a very difficult thing. Like if you're gaming 10, 15 hours a day and you still find time to, do your homework and get your work done, go to work, come back and game all day, all night, you're not able to sleep, it's still a problem. If you're functioning and you're playing every minute that you have free, is it still a disorder? That is why these mental illnesses are difficult. That is why adding things to the ICD is difficult. It needs to be a case-by-case situation. The addiction of gaming is a problem, but making this like a worldwide thing, I guess maybe it makes it easier, right? But I feel like parents have been doing this for the ever of gaming, saying that video games is the, you're going to be addicted to it. You're never going to do anything with your life because you're gaming or whatever. But now look at these crazy esport athletes, right? Getting millions of dollars for playing a video game. I'm a little torn on this. as long as you take it case by case like you would any other mental disorder, and not consider everyone an alcoholic because they drink often, or not everyone a sex addict because they want to have sex often. As long as you look at it like that, I am all for it. You can consider anything a disorder if it interrupts their daily activities of daily living. That's how I feel. Please let me know what you guys think. Is it legit? Do you think it's an actual disorder, or do you think these are just irate parents doing irate things? All right. I think this is great news. This is really good news. All right. So, being transgender is now no longer classified as a mental illness. And here is why this is great news. We are moving forward. This is progression. This is the progressive movement in a huge way, right? It is now okay for gay people to get married. It is now seen as an actual thing where people are born in the wrong, they assign the wrong sex at birth. They feel a certain way. They were raised in a certain way, but they don't. They were raised in a certain way, but they don't feel as if they were in that they're that sex, that they're that gender, right? So this is why they have decided that being transgender is not considered a mental illness. Being transgender is no longer classified as a mental illness by the World Health Organization, a key sign of progress for an often marginalized community, very much so. World Health Organization announced Monday that in its newly released edition of the International Classification of Disease, talking about same situation, gender incongruence will now be classified as a sexual health condition. Gender incongruence is characterized by marked and persistent incongruence between an individual's experienced gender and the assigned sex, according to the International Classification of Disease. For example, a person who was born with a penis and is biologically a male but identifies as a female. Not every transgender person has gender incongruence, said Dr. Jennifer Conti, a fellow at Physicians for Reproductive Health. A person who was born with a penis and is biologically a male but identifies as a female. So this is a little confusing, and I'm just gonna be honest with you. So not every transgender person, but if there's an incongruence between the assigned sex and what people treat you as versus the sex you want to be. So what I'm getting out of this is that the incongruence is persistent, right? So one day you feel like a male, next day you feel like a female. One day you feel like a male, next day you feel like a female. That is the incongruence that I'm hearing. If that is going on, if you feel that way, then it is an actual disorder. But if you were born in a male's body, you've been assigned that male, people treat you as a man, but you feel and you identify as a female, and that's it. You feel and identify as a female since birth, and that's has always been the situation. That is not considered a condition. That is just transgender. You want to go through with the transition, do you boo-boo, right? So the incongruence, I think, is if you're flip-flopping, that's when it becomes an issue. But understand this, all right? Understand this. In today's culture, if you are born as a male, if people treat you as a male, and you feel as though you're a female or vice versa, right? And it's not flip-flopping. You just don't know how to explain that to the community. You don't know how to express that feeling. That is not a condition. That right there is the struggle of trying to be a transgender person in 2018, where the world just does not accept you for what you identify as. So the feeling, the confusion that many people that are transgender have explained and explored and told the world that they feel is very different than one day I actually feel like a male. I think I'm a male. I want to be a male. And some days I think I'm a female. I want to be a female. And I don't look like a female, right? I don't have the biological parts for a female. That is an incongruence that they would consider a condition. And it's now in the ICD, there is a separation between those two things. So gaming disorder is now a thing, and being transgender is not a thing anymore. It's the incongruence, the persistent incongruence between what you feel and what you identify as, right? And I love this story. Some more good news. Yes, I am bringing you some good news. We did start off in a negative light, but I'm picking you up. We're picking you up here. So Lyft has begun to do something amazing for the people in California. So Lyft begins offering free rides to cancer patients in Los Angeles. I love the story. Speaks to me, baby. So those battling cancer in several U.S. cities, including Los Angeles, will be able to commute to and from treatment free of charge with Lyft. The company said this week the ride-hailing app is partnering with the American Cancer Society to operate the program, which is effective in L.A. immediately. Dan Witzling, executive director of the nonprofit, said in a news release that lack of transportation remains one of the largest roadblocks to those with the disease accessing quality health care. Cancer patients who need a ride can call 800-227-2345, and this is specifically for Los Angeles, remember. To coordinate with the American Cancer Society, the organization will then use Lyft concierge to book a ride. Those who use the service are advised to call a few days ahead of their appointment. Lyft said minors and those who need assistance walking should also be prepared to travel with an adult companion. So great news. Lyft, this is the kind of thing that's going to give you the hump over Uber. You guys have been doing a good job treating your employees better, paying them a little bit better. I know the competition is real between the two. I have many people in my family, many friends that do both ride Uber and Lyft. And I hear stories on both sides why one is better, but that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is to just clap it up for Lyft. Clap it up for Lyft. This is an amazing thing that they are doing, and this is continuous. And it's starting in LA. They said many cities, other cities are going to join sooner or later because it is a perfect thing. As a nurse, we know that patients that have chronic diseases, especially the kind of chronic diseases that need treatments like chemo, that need treatments like radiation, a weekly, daily, monthly basis, it becomes an issue because the treatments, the disease process deteriorates these patients, so they're not able to drive, they're not able to function by themselves. Many of the times they do need help. And on top of that, if you leave everything for just the family to take care of, it makes it very difficult because having this disease process, being a cancer patient means number one, we all know that cancer is not a very cheap disease to have. If there was anything considered a cheap disease, I don't know if that's a thing here in the States, right? But it's a very expensive thing to do, right? So if you have cancer, the treatments are not cheap. The medications are definitely not cheap. So their caregivers, their caretakers are trying to take care of the financial end. They're trying to take care of everything in the home. They're trying to take care of the patient entirely. If this patient is the disease has taken too much from the patient, where they can't travel on their own, where they can't make their own, commute, it becomes a huge roadblock. So Lyft, thank you for doing this. I think it's amazing. You guys are awesome for doing this. Congrats, your mother-frickin-lations. Go Lyft. Now let's talk about Paul Ryan and a nurse that he became friends with. Yes, Paul Ryan has stood up for a nurse. Nurse of the week? I don't know. You guys decide. I didn't make a nurse of the week specific video this week, but in mind, I was thinking of nurse of the week when I did this, when I was looking up and doing the research for this story, because I'm very one-sided when it comes to this issue, but let me give you the details and then we can talk about it in a little bit. So on June 7th, so Paul Ryan honors a nurse who refused to perform abortions, right? Reading that headline, I was already like, homegirl. Yeah, if you're going to get into labor and delivery, if you're going to be in that kind of nursing job, please don't give me your sob story. That was my initial reaction, and I just want to be honest. But I'll read you the story, give you the details, and then I'll explain to you why I'm looking at this nurse in a different light, and it's more of a situational system problem versus just a her problem. So on June 7, 2018, Speaker of the House Paul Ryan was a featured speaker at the Faith and Freedom Coalition annual conference. During his speech, he honored Nurse Kathy for standing up for her anti-abortion beliefs and advocating for legislation that ensures other nurses are able to practice according to their deeply held religious and pro-life beliefs. Ryan pointed to her as a shining example of the importance of religious freedom and a symbol of that challenges that the pro-life movement faces. Risking job security, Nurse DeCarlo's ordeal began in 2010 when she was asked to assist during an abortion as part of her nursing duties at the hospital. Prior to the incident, DeCarlo had clearly established an understanding with the hospital and her supervisors, whereby she could ask to be excused from abortion procedures and a replacement nurse would be found. In fact, when she was first hired, she was assured that she would never have to act against her conscience and perform procedures that directly contradicted her religious beliefs. So that right there, my friends, is the most important piece of information there. Like I said from the beginning, as a nurse, there are things that you might do that you don't agree with. When a patient decides that they want to be DNR and you think that they're too young, or you think that, they're too healthy, or you think that it's not time for them to become a DNR, you don't have if your conscience says that you should jump and try to save that person's life because they can be saved and have a healthy life after being saved, it does not matter. It's that person's patient's decision. And I always talk about that, and I always use that example because that's an example every single nurse can imagine and deal with, right? Abortion is a much more emotional conversation, right? But every nurse has met a patient that is DNR and you saying, I don't know, if I was in your situation, maybe I would have stayed a little longer. Or a patient that's a full code where you say, if I was in your situation, maybe I'd be in a different situation. It doesn't matter. You have to do what the patient wants because it's the goddamn patient and it's not you. You are there to take care of the patient. Here, I understand. I get it. You don't want to do abortions. You got into labor and delivery because you love life, you love babies, and that's what you want to do. Congratulations. But if you get into the job and then one day an abortion patient comes in, a patient that wants to have an abortion comes in and you say, no, I can't do this, and there's another nurse to take care of, lovely. And I think that's what most nursing facilities do. I don't know. I work with nurses all day, every day. If there's a procedure, if there's something that I don't know or don't want to do or don't feel comfortable doing, and I ask a fellow nurse, 99.98% of the time, there is someone on the unit, there's a supervisor, there's a manager, there's someone that can replace me. If there is a situation where they can't, you got to suck it up, right? But, you heard what they said at the end. She was assured when she got the job that would not have to happen. She was assured that she will never have to go do any procedure against her conscience, against her religious beliefs. She was assured at the point of hire. I'm guessing if that's something she brought up in the beginning when she was getting hired, it really does mean something to her. She doesn't want to do it. She made it clear to supervisors, to the HR. Everyone was on board, and now the hospitals are being like, oh no, you have to. That is an issue. I understand both sides. Nursing shortage around the goddamn world. There's always going to be a nursing shortage. I feel like that's just what I've come to terms with, right? So if there was a situation where there is no nurse that can replace you, you are the only nurse, it is a shitty situation. And it sucks. She stood up for her guns. I don't know what the end of that story was. Did they call someone in to do it? Did she end up having to do it? Well, I don't know what the end of that specific story is, but Paul Ryan says, good for her for standing up for her beliefs. And I'm with him. I don't agree with Paul Ryan on nearly anything, but I agree. If that's what they agreed on at the point of hire, if that's a conversation you had with your manager, with your supervisor, with HR, and everyone was on board, and now they're trying to flip the switch on you, no, you don't have to. You already made that decision. As a team, you guys already made that decision. Tell me what you guys think. Is it right that she decided not to do it? Do you think that we should go above and beyond to, make these nurses feel comfortable? As a nurse, I'm speaking as a nurse. All right, some surprising news. So, very much like the Juneteenth, I did not know that this was an issue specific for us nurses. The nursing wage, there's a gender wage gap in nursing. And nursing in Massachusetts, it's not in America, vastly major. I think in the world, it's a majority female profession. So you might think maybe this is the one time, because it's a majority female profession, that females would be getting paid more than males on average. Wrong. This blew my mind. I just don't know how. I don't know how this is a situation, but it is a situation that female nurses do and are getting paid less than male nurses on average at every level. Staff nurses, new nurses, grad nurses, management nurses. All right, let me give you the details. In a profession where women comprise 88% of the workforce, one might assume nurses would be largely unaffected by the gender wage gap. Wrong. But the nursing profession is not. In fact, immune to disparities in pay, finds the newly released nursing salary research report conducted by On Course Learning. According to the study, on average, men who are nurses out-earn women nurses by $6,000 annually. That's a lot of money, boo-boo. That's a lot of money. So even taking into account the total hours worked, years of nursing experience, age, education level, and certification status, men still are making more money than women, says Robert G. Hess Jr., PhD, RN, FFAN. I don't know what that FFAN is. Executive Vice President and Chief Clinical Executive for On Course Learning. So the survey, they did a survey of over 4,500 nurses from all 50 states took part in the survey. Among the notable findings regarding average annual earnings, so listen closely, because this is where the numbers come in. Male nurses earned $79,688 on average, where female nurses earn an average of $73,090. Men who were chief nursing officers earn an average salary of $132,700, where women CNOs earn an average of $127,000. Male staff nurses $75,833, and female staff nurses earned an average of $68,521. So this blew my mind. It really did blow my mind. Number one is experience. And then number two, it's just years that you've been at that specific hospital. That's how our nursing salaries are based. And that's when I was looking for a job, I went to a million different interviews, different facilities, went to hospitals, went to nursing homes, went to rehabs, went to all of these places. And that's basically how it worked. And it's like every year you'll get a 2% raise, you'll get a 5% raise. And then there's special occasions, like if you win like a nursing award, like the Daisy Award, if you win any of these special awards, then you get a bigger boost in your salary, percentage-wise. So I had no idea that this was a thing. And in any profession, if there were going to be any profession where it'd be the flip, the wage gap would be flipped, or it would just not be a thing, you would think it'd be nursing. But no. And then if you continue reading, the authors of this article and the survey said that a lot of it has to do with negotiating. It was like 43% of men negotiate their salary every year, every time they have a meeting, every time they talk about bonuses and salary upgrades, whereas it was only like 30% or 25% of women. Does that count for the $6,000 on average for every nurse? No, I know. Especially when I'm starting a job, I always put a really, really high number, and I talk myself up and say that I'm an investment. The potential is there. I'm going to be a great nurse. I know I do that, but that's also because I go on YouTube and find best ways to negotiate your salary. That's what I do. Is it a man thing? I don't know, but what I do know that there's a wage gap, and it's crazy that there's an actual wage gap when there's so little men in this profession. So little. When there's much more females in this profession. And then my last story of the day is sex. We are talking about sex, and I think this is an exciting story to end on. But before I even get into this story, I do want to say that this story, you're going to see a lot more pop-ups, a lot more noises, a lot more music in the background. That's because this is going to be my first story that I am doing for Remixed Medicine. Remixed Medicine, I am super excited to join the team. I talked to the Remixed Medicine team They are welcoming me. I would be the first nurse on the team, which is exciting. And it's very important to have it. It's remixed medicine. So MDs, doctors are the main show, but you can't talk about medicine without talking about nurses. And if you go follow them, go check them out, go listen to them, it is absolutely amazing. I love what they do, and I am just trying to fit in without making too much of a hiccup. So this is my attempt at joining Remix Medicine, and if they enjoy me, if they would welcome me, if they want me to stay, you will be seeing at least one episode like this, one story done like this per week, and if not per week, if not one story, many more stories if you guys like it better. I'm all about it. I am all about it. So, story of the day. What are we talking about today? We are talking about sex. We are talking about sexy time. We are talking about why you want to do sex, have sex, enjoy sex, and how sex can make you feel better as literally a human being and make your partner feel better in many, many ways. All right. So, how sex makes you happier and a healthier person.
Oh, yeah.
Listen, understand that this is real. This is real. So sex can improve your longevity. Now, when I say longevity, I don't mean how long it's going to last you in bed, although that's something that may happen, a side effect, a good side effect, but it can improve longevity of life. And this is legit, you guys. This is legit. Having sex, having regular sex can improve your lifespan, according to Sonny Rogers, a clinical sexologist and a certified sex coach.
Okay, then.
Sex can also may improve mental health, and mental health is important for many people, and sex could be a stressor. Sex could be one of those things that you think about all the time, to not think about enough, not have enough. It can cause problems, but at the same time it can improve mental health. And how does it do that? Ever felt your worries melt away during sex? Of course it does, because your mind is on one thing and one thing only, and that's the end result, right? Sex can lead to decreased pain and anxiety and increased relaxation and a sense of well-being. Rogers continues on by saying, sex can increase intimacy with your partner, and I think this makes just the most sense in the world. When are you most vulnerable as a human being? When you're naked, when your body is saying things that you can't control, right? When you have an erection, that's your body speaking to you, and you can't control that in many times. When you, as a female, when things are getting wet and things are happening to people's bodies, it's literally the most vulnerable you might be as a human being ever. And to share that with another person and go through the process of having sex and having that wonderful ending, right? That can only improve the intimacy of, obviously we're assuming that all parties are involved and want it and it's enjoyable for everybody, right? Obviously that improves the intimacy between partners. Moving on, sex is good medicine. How is sex good medicine? I believe sex is good medicine. I believe sex is great medicine. So sex is good medicine because frequent sex may aid your physical health in multiple ways. According to a study by Boston University School of Public Health, ejaculation lowers the risk of prostate cancer, which makes sex a healthy option for men.
Yeah, nigga. Baby.
This is super important, right? Fun fact, as men, we are all... The only thing preventing you from having BPH as a man, which will then, which a lot of times leads to prostate cancer, is age. As a man, if you live long enough, you will end up having BPH at some point in your life. And once you do have BPH, it's a huge risk factor for you getting, prostate cancer. So, ejaculation, which comes from having sex, makes it lower risk for you to get BPH. If you have lower risk of BPH, means you get lower risk of prostate cancer. Sex is good for you men. Ejaculate as often as you possibly can, okay? Enjoy yourself. And sex will burn some calories. So this is something a lot of people talk about all the time, and I don't know how true it is. The study gives a certain number. I'm going to talk to you about it, but let's see what they say, and then I'll tell you how I feel. So a couple burns about 100 calories every time they have sex, Roger said, and if they have sex approximately 3 times each week, they can burn over 15,000 calories a year without even visiting the gym. 3 times a week, that sounds like a good amount of time to have sex with your partner. You do that all year long, 15,000 calories. Don't go to the gym. Enjoy yourself. Literally enjoy yourself while you lose weight. It's a good thing. It's a go-go. Sex is great in every way, shape, or form, right? Enjoy yourself. Hey, there's more. It just doesn't end there. Sex is a good stress reliever. Specifically, orgasms can release a lot of tension throughout your body, physically and mentally. And I think this is great. I love that they mentioned this, right? I think this is the most, when you think how can sex be healthy, this is the number one thing that comes to mind. Releasing your stress, right? You just become loosey-goosey. For men in a physical, very physical way. I had a female patient who'd been having sex. This is Roger speaking, the sexologist. I had a female patient who'd been having sex 3 times a week for 12 years without an orgasm.
You can do it!
She explained, when we finally worked on it and she did orgasm, she said, "Wowzers, doctor, it really worked."
Yeah, baby.
The reason she was super happy is because she was finally having an orgasm. 12 years of her life having sex all the time, and she never orgasmed. She was stressed, she was anxiety, she had all of the issues with her. And now she finally was starting to orgasm, and she said, "Oh my goodness, my anxiety is gone, my stress is gone, I love having sex, it's a great thing. Sex is good for you, me, the goddamn world. Find someone, a partner, a good friend, do it, and do it often because it's good for you."
Okay, what's up?
Last but not least, sex can lead to greater pelvic and menstrual health.
What?
And this is important. But this is the most commonsensical one of them, because he says, Rogers, the sexologist, continues by saying, sex simply leads to better sex. The more sex you have, the better your sex is. And he's talking specifically, like, functionally, physically, the more sex you have, you're doing Kegels while you're having sex, whether you know it or not. You know, both men and women, the actual pelvis movement, the burning of the calories, the muscles in that area get stronger. So physically, yes, the sex becomes better, but also, this is important. Understand, it's not just the physical. Emotionally, the sex get better, right? You understand what your partner wants. The intimacy is there. You know what she wants. She knows what you want. You guys get better at it. Emotionally, like the intimacy is good, and physically, your body's getting stronger. Yeah, for you men, you know what I'm talking about. Your body's getting stronger.
Stop.
Sex, it does great things. Going down the list one more time. So for your folks that joined me late, how can sex make your life better, healthier for all people? Okay? Improve longevity, a longer life, not just longevity in the bed, longevity in life.
Another one.
Sex can increase intimacy with you and your partner. Very obvious. The better the sex is, the more communication you have, the intimacy goes up.
Another one.
Sex can be good medicine, literally good medicine. Prevent BPH for you men, which can lead to prostate cancer. It is good medicine.
Another one.
Sex is actual exercise, right? So 100 calories a day, every time, 100 calories an attempt. You do that for a year, 3 times a week. That's 15,000 calories a year, right? Forget about the gym membership. Just find someone who wants to do you.
Another one.
Sex is a good stress reliever, releases the anxiety. Make sure if you are having sex, you figure out a way to orgasm. Having sex without orgasm can cause more stress. If you orgasm, it lowers the stress. So it could be, just make sure you orgasm. Find someone who gets to you. You know what I mean? Who gets to you. 6.
Another one.
Sex can be great for your pelvic muscles and emotionally muscles, right? So sex, it's good for you, it's good for me, it's good for everybody. Find a friend, have some good sex, enjoy your life, enjoy it. Trust me, it's good for all of us.